And we are back for part one, or part two, I guess. Part one of the signs. So now we're going to be talking about the signs. And today we're going to address the initial stage. Are we dating an abuser? Are you dating an abuser or a potential abuser? How do we know? So we are going to share some of the signs. And one of the signs, it's not necessarily, these signs don't necessarily mean that the person is abusive if they're doing that, but we need to pay attention. So Charmaine is back here for this conversation. So Charmaine's going to be here for the whole time. So hi, Charmaine.
Hi.
And I kind of put you on the spot there. So I'll start. I'll start with the first sign, and then you give me your feedback on that, whether you have a personal experience or know someone who's experienced the same. So one of the very common signs is when you're dating someone who flatters you to the extreme, says you're the most wonderful person, that you are perfect, no one is as good as you. They make you feel so special that is not, that make you feel like you're the only person on this planet that is actually worthy of any other attention. And they tend to shower you with a lot of attention and a lot of gifts. Those gifts are not necessarily expensive gifts. I've had the experience of going through this where I was being showered with gifts, but they were not expensive gifts because the person didn't have a lot of money, but I was receiving gifts every day as a game of just to making sure that I never forgot the person. So it was a constant fun little toys, little games that, I would receive every day. And it was fun. I had no idea what was going on. It was fun. I thought it was a cute thing that was going on. But that was like sign number one for me. So lots of attention, like constant attention, constant, daily, morning, noon, night, lots of flattering words, like, wow, you're such an incredible person. I've never known anyone like you. You're just incredible. You're just amazing. Every single conversation, on every single conversation. So those were the signs I experienced. How about you, Charmaine? Have you experienced this personally, or have you seen other people, or what is your experience around this?
The flattering, yes. You're so beautiful. I'm so lucky to have you in my life. And my life would be so empty without you. Not in those exact words. But there was one weird thing that happened, which I should have looked at, which I didn't. The day we started dating, he said, I want to marry you. I got a bit of a shock when we were just standing there and looking into each other's eyes. And he was just straight off the bat, he's like, I want to marry you. So I thought he was joking, and I was like, yeah, let's get married tomorrow. And we had been friends for a whole year before we started dating, because I didn't want to jump into a relationship without actually knowing the person. So while we were just hanging out together, we liked the same movies, we liked the same books, we liked the same music. We were in a rock band together. So we had so much in common. And I was like, oh, if I could date a guy like that, would be so cool. Because there's just so much that, we had in common. And then he did ask me, and I brushed him off. And then he asked me, and I brushed him off. Because, I don't know, just something didn't feel right at that time. Then when my mom died, 2 days after my mom's funeral, things just kind of took off. I would say took off. Maybe because I was in a vulnerable place, and losing a parent is not easy. And I was 29 when my mom died, and I was like, okay, why not? You you want to fill that void when you're just, she died suddenly. So there was obviously a void. And it felt like he was filling that void. And then it just took off from there. But everything was just so perfect. And we got along really well. It felt like something straight out of a romance novel. Everything felt so good, and I felt so perfect, so wanted, so loved, and I had never felt that way before. And it just felt so right. Everything felt so right. He was always there, one phone call and he was there to help. And I was like, wow, who does that? Who does that? When I used to be sick, sometimes he would take me to the doctor. And I was like, wow, he's even taken a half day from work to help me out when I was sick. And I was so overwhelmed by the attention and the caring. I mean, nowadays it's so rare to find someone who cares about you to that extent where they're ready to take a half day from work. And I just didn't think that it would lead to something so insidious that would turn my entire life into a nightmare. But this is one thing that, that constant attention on you and filling your needs the moment you need to, that's something you should, that I mean, now it would be a red flag for me.
Yeah. You said a couple of things there. One that, and this is very common for narcissists to take advantage of, is they look for the moment that you're vulnerable. The more vulnerable you are, if you are in a vulnerable, whether you're coming from a past relationship, whether you have lost a loved one, whether you lost a job, whatever, if you are in a vulnerable place, a narcissist that is pursuing you, it's like they have a magnet, and they and they'll know how to do all the right things just to pull you in itself. The fact that he took the time off and took you to the doctor, and that in itself is not a bad thing. It's in combination with the other signs, right? Because there's nothing nicer than someone who's naturally and genuine and caring in a very genuine way. There are people who are very genuinely concerned and will give you the shirt off their backs and will do anything for you. It's about the combination of things. It's not just the one flag. So just to make sure everyone understands that. And the other thing that you mentioned, well, you didn't quite mention it, but as you were sharing, uh, the projection, like you said, you had the same interests, the same likes. Was that real, like over the long term of the relationship, or was just that a facade at first? Was that mirroring? So that's what I'm saying, because we were going to talk about mirroring. So I'm wondering, was that a mirroring phase? Was he trying to mirror what you liked so that you were, or did you literally have the same interests?
We literally had the same interests,
Okay.
but then he kind of pulled me into liking some of his interests as well, which was gaming was one of them. So he's a gamer. And he said, you know what, we should game together. And then I kind of got sucked into the gaming thing, not addicted, but we would game together, which I found fun and therapeutic. So that became our thing. And actually, coincidentally or not, I'm not sure, but we like the same authors, and we read the same books and the same genres. And that he said that when we were just getting to know each other and we didn't know what we liked and did like. So in a course of conversations about what we like to read and listen to and things like that, that's when we spoke about it. So I wouldn't say that was mirroring at all.
Narcissists who are trying to lure you in will mirror you. They'll know things about you and they'll go, oh, me too, or oh, me too, whether it's family values, your personal values. So something to be very aware of as well. I mean, it's great if you can find someone who's got common interests. that's wonderful. You do want, right? You do want that, but it's also okay to have different interests because then you can balance that off and have your own time or do the gaming part, like you had the game. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, hey, let's game together. We can be partners. So something like that seems quite innocent. And to me anyway, it's just the overall picture, right? When you look at all the pieces, was that really a common interest, or was that a mirrored interest only to lure you in and then that's not there anymore? So that's another thing to really pay attention. Did you have any mirroring experience at all?
Empathy, I would say. Empathy. Because I was raised, my grandfather and my mom were very, very strict about empathy. I was a spoiled kid at one stage, and I used to be quite rude. And my mom and grandfather would punish me, and they would tell me, "You're going to put yourself in someone else's place before you say or do anything. How would you feel? And then think about how they would feel, because if it makes you feel bad, they're going to feel bad." And I was raised very strictly on these lines. And there were times when he used to be so empathic, so concerned. And then there were the other times when it was just the pure opposite, like exactly how you would look at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was like that. Is this the same person? That kind of thing. So I would say empathy was one of the things he mirrored. Like, oh,
Okay.
I'm such a good person. I feel what you feel. It's like that.
It's fake empathy because the thing is, if I don't know if your ex-partner was uh narcissist, like with personality disorder or not, like we can't diagnose people, we can only see the signs there, but there need to be tests done to actually determine whether that person has narcissistic personality disorder or not. The thing is, narcissists on the high spectrum, let's put it that way, have no empathy. That's another way of knowing. They don't, anything that they feel that looks like they feel sorry about, on yeah, if they look like if they seem empathetic, like just watch all the time for every little thing. um I One sign for me, which I didn't understand it at the time, I didn't get it at the time, but when I was with in one of my previous relationships, because sadly I've had more than one relationships, I didn't learn the first time because they all come in different sizes and different looks. They have different traits. Um, but one of them, and that should have been a clue, but would enjoy telling me stories of growing up and playing these jokes on family members, cousins, brothers, and sisters. I can't remember who, where he would hurt them and he thought it was funny. He would physically hurt them. And he would laugh his head off thinking it was really funny. And I was like, that's not funny, right? It's like, oh no, but it's funny. It was a joke. But no, it's not funny. Like he would, well, I'll tell you what it was. I'll share just as an example. He was boasting. There you go, the grandiose. Thought it was funny to grab them by the feet, by the ankles, and smack them on the toes. Like he would gesture and show me that this is what he was doing, and he'd be laughing because they would try to run away and they'd be crying, they'd be upset about it. And I'm like, that's cruel. That's mean. So that now looking back, I'm like, that was cruel. That's a sign. That's no empathy. That shows absolutely no empathy for someone suffering pain. And then you're the one who's actually imposing the pain. So it's not even like you're watching it, but you're actually imposing it. So yeah, empathy is so important. That is probably one of the biggest thing to really look for, because if there's no empathy, the relationship is doomed. Just right away. Just know that, because they don't care. They only care about themselves. Yeah.
So another sign was when the abuse had really escalated, I rarely cry, but when I did cry, he would just ignore it, like it wasn't happening. I was not really there, and there would be absolutely no remorse. And he knew that when I cried, that means things were really, really, really bad. And he would just have this poker face, no emotions, and he would just like, oh, everything is normal, ignore me crying and stuff. There were nights when I would just cry myself to sleep, and that was not normal for me. And he could hear sometimes, but he would just pretend that he was asleep and nothing was happening.
I share a very similar experience with the addition that mine would actually tell me to stop crying and grow up. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But not at first. So we are on the topic at the beginning. At the beginning of relationships, these things don't happen. So that's what's important here to understand is that that initial was so amazing. Like you said, right? It started, you had the same interest. And then look what happened later. So as we go on in the series, we will address, the how it slowly changes, what happens along the way that we need to pay attention to. So, Charmaine, I'm looking at our notes and you had picked grooming as a topic. Tell me more about that or share.
so basically when they're grooming is they're getting you ready, they're manipulating you. They're making you believe that they are the best thing after sliced bread. They are your answer to every problem. They are everything you need. And they've built up this image of themselves in your mind. That is, and once they know that you believe that they are that person, that image that they've created, and that is when they slowly start to chip it away. And you've already got this image in your head, and they'll start with the insidious behavior.
And grooming and all of that attention they give you, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? With the flattering and all that, because they get you to be attached to that. You become addicted to it. It becomes like a drug. You get so much of it and it feels so good. You get that hit of dopamine that it feels so good that you want to be around them because of that. But then slowly that goes away. But we'll talk about that later. But grooming is kind of intertwined with that initial stage of flattering and attention. How quickly? Let's talk about how fast relationships move. What's your experience with that? Well, actually, you
Well,
said
the
it.
day we start,
Yeah, he said he wanted to marry you first day. Like,
yes.
yeah,
And I thought
uh,
it was a joke.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Mine was not on the first day per se. I'll go specific in one particular relationship where it was on the first day, but it was pretty early on, maybe within 2 weeks. Um, we were in public and there was a newspaper, someone had thrown newspaper on the ground on public transit. So we were on the public transit and I picked it up from the floor and I just put it back, put it on the chair because I'm like, it was just sitting there on the ground. And I thought, it's just the right thing to do. And he looked at me, he's like, "You're the one." I'm like, "What?" "You're the one. What you just did, that's a sign. You're the one. That's it. You are the one." And that was, I was like, Okay." It was really interesting, but it was just within a couple of weeks that it wasn't, "I want to marry you" right away, although that came pretty quickly after. But yeah, that was within a couple of weeks. You're the one. The grooming, the planting the seed, right?
Exactly.
How do you know? You don't really know me, really. Think about it. That's the thing. I think
Yeah.
as a warning out there, it doesn't matter how amazing it feels. What's the rush? What is the rush? There is no reason, absolutely zero reason to make a commitment quickly. And if you're getting pressured for that, and I found out later with my ex because, with this particular ex, because he did rush into the marriage, like very quickly within 3 months. Not even, I think it was within 2 months actually. Um, and I asked him later, like later in the year. So I'm like, you rushed it because you were worried that I would change my mind, didn't you? And he actually said, yeah.
Oh,
He was worried that I would catch on,
yeah.
right? He confessed. He confessed to it. He admitted it when I confronted him after, right? Now it was years later. So he
You got
did
him off
admit.
the back.
Yeah, he did admit to it. And of course he took me for granted at that point. He didn't think I'd go anywhere. But our audience, I think we're gonna just leave this part before we go into a whole another section of signs to look for. But this initial stage of relationships, and the dating period, the early dating period, I think it's important to start paying attention to those signs. I will have linked to a full brochure that highlights all the signs to look for while you're dating, just to see if are you really dating an abuser, and also the hotlines that you can call as well. So Charmaine, it's been great talking to you and sharing stories and
Likewise,
feedback
Francesca.
and
Likewise.
experiences. So I'm looking forward to the next section of signs that we want to share with people so that we can help make this a safer place, a safer world, better relationships, healthier relationships, and we all benefit from that.